many of you have heard before that Audrey is prone to bark anytime the president lies, but as he didn't speak today, I question that. But, be that as it may, I think it's interesting that he was very angry with the notion that the turkey was not chosen. And the idea that a bird who drowns to death by not thinking to swallow when it's raining and he's looking up is kind of a terrifying notion. I mean, a turkey's a very dumb animal. Very dumb. And I personally love the bald eagle symbol because of, how it looks. As many of you do. I mean, the bald eagle is a very powerful symbol of freedom today. But Benjamin Franklin has a point. And he continues on here when he's talking about it, that is, enough to sway any American if you listen to it. He says, I am on this account not displeased that the figure is not known as a bald eagle, but looks more like a turkey. For the truth, the turkey is, in comparison, a much more respectable bird, and withal a true original native of America. He is, besides, though a little vain and silly, a bird of courage, and would not hesitate to attack a grenadier of the British Guards who should presume to invade his farmyard with a red coat on. See, I find that interesting. I think the idea that the bird would attack a British soldier is what made it appealing. Or the idea that it didn't steal its food from other birds, but that goes with not being a predator. But on that note, you could also go with a goose or a swan, because they have no problem attacking either. But, it is what it is. It's hard for me as, somebody that knows enough about turkeys from, hunting and being out in the country and hearing about it. And if you've ever seen Sergeant York, you know the turkey to be dumb. I mean, you always pick them off from the back and they don't seem to pay attention, and they drown to death when it rains. The idea that we could be represented by a bird that drowns to death when it rains is not a pleasant idea. Not a pleasant idea at all. Now, speaking of turkeys, there is one small tradition here in America that I personally have a problem with. I don't understand why we bother with it. And that is the White House turkey pardon. Now, I don't know about you, but since 2008, that's Bush's last Thanksgiving in the White House, through all of the Obama years, I am very critical of the turkey pardon. Now, for those of you who aren't entirely sure about the turkey pardon, basically, you've got, some of the best farmers in the country that raise up a few turkeys to be presented to the president to choose from. And the president chooses to pardon one of them, and the other he chooses to eat. Or he's supposed to. And I find that to be strange, because nowadays, the last 5 years, neither turkey's been eaten. And to me, that's just very odd. It's just very, very odd. I mean, some farmer has put his livelihood into this turkey, And for it to be just dismissed is kind of, to me, ridiculous. Very ridiculous. Now, the first sort of turkey presentation was in 1863 with Abraham Lincoln. His son Tad begged him to spare a Christmas turkey from his table. Basically, Lincoln's son had adopted the bird, named it Jack, and taught the bird to follow him around the White House grounds. So it became a pet bird. We didn't actually use the word pardon during the ceremony until George H.W. Bush in 1989. That's when it sort of became a custom. Now, you had a Rhode Island poultry dealer that sent the president a Thanksgiving turkey for 4 decades. He started in 1870 with Ulysses S. Grant. And so that's where this tradition came of sending the president his turkey. And Mr. Vos, the man who did this, died in 1913, so obviously he's not doing that anymore. But it kind of spawned from there. Now, you have Truman, who received a bird from the National Turkey Federation, which celebrated its 66th presentation this year. Now, of course, Truman never pardoned the turkey, but he took them as gifts and he ate them like a good American who likes turkey. But, JFK, he had gone through in 1963, just 3 days before he was assassinated, and spared one of the turkeys. There was a turkey that was sent to him that was meant to be, his turkey and his Thanksgiving turkey, but it was small. And so he said, we'll just let this one grow, and sent it back to the farm. So that's kind of where the idea came from. Now, of course, the presidents, always take a photo op with the birds. And Reagan, in 1987, made a joke about pardoning the turkey because of the Iran-Contra stuff. But President Bush was the first one to grant, an official pardon for the turkey. And, afterwards they were usually sent to Disneyland or Mount Vernon. That's where they go now. So they head to Mount Vernon and have Christmas there and everything. Now, because of the way we breed turkeys, they are they're a lot bigger than they used to be, because they're bred for size, obviously. I mean, we want big fat turkeys on our table. And the problem with that is that these turkeys are, they have heart disease really bad, and they only live maybe 14 months, if that. I mean, actually, I take that back. They live to be about 2 years old. So they'll be around 14 months old when they're presented to the president, and then they're lucky to live a year after that. They usually die before the next Thanksgiving. And so it's kind of a strange notion to me that one of them is sent to live for a year at Mount Vernon before they die, when they could, have fed a family in need or something. But who am I to question tradition? Well, I'm the host of America Our Way, and I say it's stupid, but that's just me. The big problem that I've kind of had is that in Bush's last Thanksgiving in 2008 at the White House, he was presented one bird because the other one got sick. And so he pardoned the one bird in keeping with tradition his father started. And every year after that, Obama has pardoned both birds. Well, he's pardoned one, but sent them both off to the farm. And so it's just kind of, to me, altogether ridiculous that you've got this fresh turkey bred specifically for the purpose of being the president's meal, and they send them both to a farm. Do any of you find that ridiculous? I mean, if somebody was going to offer me a wild turkey, I wouldn't be turning it down or sending it to a farm, I'll tell you that much. Especially a 100-year tradition. But, be that as it may, it is what it is. Now, I want to get into Obamacare a little bit here because there is some information going around that Obama is floating a waiver for unions on the Obamacare stuff. And as many of you know, that is, of course, a horrible thing because for whatever the unions don't pay, the rest of us will have to pay. Now, there was one guy on Fox that today that had an interesting quote I'd never heard before. It says, "Don't tax me, tax the guy behind the tree." And then he said, "We're all going to be behind the tree," which I thought was very apt and very true, because there is a per capita population tax, if you will, coming out of Obamacare, where basically every person's going to have to pay around $65 just because. The new law has to raise around $12 billion to pay for other people. And of course that comes out of our pockets. And the unions are trying to get that $65 a head tax waived. They're trying to get it waived so that they don't have to deal with that. They're trying to get any reprieve that they can from Obamacare, and the president is considering giving it to them. Because obviously the union vote is very important to them. The Democrats need the unions to win. It's just the way it is. Now, thankfully, there is a Republican senator in Congress right now who has proposed legislation to prevent the president from letting unions off the hook. And I think that's important, especially for organizations that campaigned for the new healthcare law. It's very, very important as Americans that we hold these people accountable, as their interest group is directly responsible for getting this thing done. It's their fault, and we need to hold them accountable for that. Now, another interesting thing that happened this week, I believe, was John Boehner signing up for Obamacare. He actually had lots of trouble doing it, getting on the website and everything, which I thought was funny. I mean, obviously, he's not going to talk about how great the law is, and it's obviously not great, but it's not particularly good. This law is horrible. We all know that. It's an overreach of this tyrannical government. It's a show of nanny statism. It's a show of the left trying to push their socialist agenda yet again. But at least with Republicans making ridiculous grandstands about signing up for Obamacare and how bad it is, that's something that you can kind of get behind in that aspect. I mean, that being said, a lot of these Republicans are just Democrat light, and that's not something to forget. You can't forget that no matter how frustrated you are